And so I think everybody is here. So as I said, I'm Robert Burke, part of the Act Now collective. And we've been, to give you some background to the website, which you've probably all seen by now, it started really with some conversations back in January, where you know, we all, I think everybody agrees at this stage that we're in, the world is in a dire situation and urgent action is needed. You know, one of the biggest milestones or targets, which, you know, seems like a massive challenge, is to have our emissions by 2030, which is only nine years away. And I guess what prompted this was the fact that we felt that there was very little coverage of this in the media, and even very little discussion amongst our peers and people that we know. And so we, well, it was kind of a couple of us in the early days, but I approached, not knowing whether this was just our thoughts, or maybe it was actually the fact. I approached my go-to people for all things climate, who are my friends in Dublin Friends of the Earth, the steering group there, to bounce some ideas off them, and then Aine O'Gorman in Stockholm Chaos, who's, you know, a veteran campaigner and has been doing great work to help system change. And so we got a lot of encouragement from them, and sort of that gave us the confidence to actually do something about it and make this resource. And just to preface that by saying that, you know, we're aware that in order to tackle this problem, it requires change on every level, from system change, but also individual change. And I think sometimes individual change gets a bad rap because people say, no, it needs to happen from the top. But actually, what I've come to learn is that it needs to happen on all levels. And the sooner we start talking about it, the better. And also, the fact that throughout the process of making this website and having these regular conversations with the seven of us, well, starting with kind of 2 or 3, growing to now 7, and maybe growing further, is that this is actually a very positive. The transition to a low carbon lifestyle and eventually a low carbon society is actually incredibly beneficial. And you know, I'm speaking from a position of privilege. Obviously, there are a lot of people who need to be brought along with it through concepts called a just transition, which, you know, some of the people here tonight will know a lot more about than I do, or we do. But this is a start, and we thought, well, you know, maybe there needs to be a one-stop shop for knowing at least where to start, so you can. And there was a surprising lack of that kind of resource, and so we thought, well, why not just make one ourselves? And so that's what we've done. And so, without further ado, I'm going to pass you over to. I'm sorry, I actually forgot to introduce the collective. So, Brian Byrne, graphic designer, did an incredible amount of work designing the website and bringing in the graphics, which are by Chris Haughton, who's the acclaimed London-based but Irish illustrator who we have here tonight, and Brian is going to be introducing him very shortly. And also Ali Kelly from New Sustainable Fashion Company wrote the What I Wear section, and Brian is going to be speaking to her shortly as well. And we also have, in no particular order, Sarah Chudiz, who comes from a media background, who did all the editing on the website. We have Rachel Lockery, who I know from teaching architecture in UCD, who I didn't know was actually an An Taisce climate ambassador. And so Rachel's brought an incredible energy to the collective and actually introduced us to Ali. And we have Malin Moore, also a UCD acquaintance, who's brought incredible strategic thinking to the collective and is actually now based in Berlin. So we hope that she might start a German version of the collective. No, hint, hint, Malin. And we also have Anna Calvo, who is a nutritionist who was living in Dublin when we met her, but has now since moved back to Spain, where she is in the process of setting up Act Now in España. So we also have Colin, who Brian brought in, Colin McCarthy, and Colin's done incredible work with the web design and also the social media design as well, which we launched just in the last few days. So I think I've covered everybody. Yes, shout if I haven't. And so I'm going to hand you over to Brian now, and Brian is going to talk about the website, and I just need to, sorry, bring that up on my screen first. Yeah, I'll just share my screen in 1 second.
Hi everyone, thanks a million for joining us this evening. When you've put your heart and soul into a project like we've done over the last couple of months, it's really nice to finally get some recognition, so thank you. I'm delighted to be joined by Chris Haughton and Ali Kelly this evening, and I'll be chatting to them in a few minutes, but I'm first going to do a quick run through of the website homepage and the categories. So Rob, when you're ready, can you share your screen?
Yeah.
I can continue anyway.
So
we did a webinar back in February to gauge public opinion, to see if there was an appetite out there for something like this. And that night we shared a rough draft of the visual identity and the website. The concept of the identity at that point was built around protest and the protest poster in particular. The website was generally welcomed. The whole concept of it, the categories, that was all really well received. But we did get some feedback on the identity that it was a little too negative for such a positive campaign. And so that kind of, it really prompted a rethink in how we wanted to represent ourselves visually. So actually the name also was revised on the webinar. Also, we were originally called Act Now, and I think it was Frank Monahan, if I'm right, who suggested adding the word collective to make the whole thing, to make the whole initiative a little more inclusive. So I'm not sure if Frank is on tonight, but if you are, thank you for that. So in terms of the visual identity, I started afresh and kind of went back and, you know, reread all the content, and there were some extracts in the mind and body section that kind of really resonated with me. So sentences like, a healthy environment has always been important for human health. Mentally, time spent in nature can be grounding and calming. Connecting with nature can improve general well-being. And a love of nature can help remind us why we need to act and protect our beautiful planet. And so I thought that our connection with nature was a good starting point as a concept. And so the question then became, how can that connection be made visual and infused into our identity? So I started to think about how we could bring some natural elements into the website. And that's when we brought Chris Haughton on board. And I knew if Chris agreed to help us out, we would have a pretty special introduction to our website. And I think you'll agree we've kind of achieved that with the illustration we've used as the opening portion of our homepage. If any of you aren't familiar with Chris's work, I would encourage you to investigate further, because it's just a joy to behold. So if you can just scroll down, Rob, just go down to the categories, yeah. So this really is the most important part of our website. It's our guide to help you take climate action. So each category represents a key aspect of day-to-day life. Mind and body, where I work or learn, what I wear, where I live, who I care for, how I travel, what I buy, what I eat, and how I vote. And Chris kindly provided an illustration to identify each one. So the color and illustration are actually brought through into each individual category page. So each page is kind of distinct from each other. So I'm just going to hand over to Rob, if you want to click into the what I eat section. So each individual category page has an introduction, and then below that it has a series of subheadings, and that's where all our kind of practical advice lives. So I'm just going to hand you over to Anna, who's part of the team and a nutritionist who wrote the what I eat section. So she's just going to quickly run through some of that information for you.
Thank you so much, Brian. And thank you everyone for coming. I apologize for my voice because it's not in the best condition, but I really feel honored for being part of this amazing collective. So thanks again to everyone. And we just thought that I would mention a little bit about the what I eat section, simply because it is one of the most impactful ones, I believe, because we're pretty much eating every single day, constantly. So it's the one change that we all do that it will be so easy and so impactful. So by simply, for example, trying to aim to, eat more plant-based, buying locally, buying organic. So for example, say, on your weekend, go to your farmer's market, and you're also going to be minimizing packaging. And then if you click on this section, as you see, there's a little bit more information and tips. I really love the last one, especially because you have all the practical steps. So it gives you ideas of what you can do. So it's not something you need to do straight away on plant-based tomorrow, but say you can introduce different changes every week or even every month. So it really is all when planned out like that. Yeah. What do you think?
Thanks, Anna. Cheers.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you want to go back to the homepage, Rob. Yeah, just scroll down. Yeah, I think it's important to mention that quote underneath the categories by Donella Meadows. I think it really encapsulates what we're trying to do. Information is the key to transformation. Our aim is to provide people with the necessary information to start making changes in how they live. And a core part of what we do is our belief that even the smallest change can make a difference. So if you just scroll down a little bit, Rob. So just underneath that we have our latest news section, and Ali Kelly, who I'm going to chat to in a few minutes, has kindly written our first blog, and she also contributed to the what I wear category. So a big thanks to her. And then down below you can see all our lovely heads. Aren't we lovely? Yes, we are. Yep. Okay, so to my guests. So Chris Haughton is a man in demand. He's an illustrator, author, who writes children's books. He designs toys, apps, rugs. His work has been made into a stage show, and he even has an exhibition in Dublin as he speaks. So welcome, Chris. And Ali Kelly is another incredibly welcome addition to the collective. She's the co-founder and community director of New, a clothes sharing app which allows members to share and swap clothes, thereby reducing the environmental impact of fashion. She's also a senior policy advisor for Her Majesty's Probation Service in the UK. So, Chris, welcome.
Hi, Brian. Thanks very much.
It's great to have you. I'm just after kind of naming the list of stuff you're involved in, so we know you're incredibly busy.
Jack of all trades, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, look, we were so grateful when you came on board. And when Rob approached you, was there anything in particular that attracted you to the Act Now project?
Yeah, well, I mean, well, first of all, thank you so much for the. You're making my illustrations look great, Brian. The design is amazing. It's really, really nice.
Cheers.
No, well, I've been involved a little bit in just a few things over here in London, in Extinction Rebellion and stuff like that, just in a similar way to this, really sort of just giving illustrations and stuff like that. And then I heard through Rob's sister, Alwyn, that Rob was putting this together. So, you know, I was emailed Rob and just, you know, see if I can help or whatever. So yeah, like, I mean, it's just great to see. I'm not very organized myself. So if someone else is organizing something, you know, you know, at least there's things happening, and then it's nice to be involved. I don't have the ability to put something like this together myself, so I'm very grateful for all you guys putting it together.
You were just happy to row in behind everybody.
Yeah. But yeah, so like, you know, I'm freelance, so I'm sort of doing things here and there, and you know, it's nice to sort of do things that you know, of value that is going on. So yeah, just when you guys were putting this together, it just seemed like a lovely thing to collaborate on. And yeah, like that, thanks so much. I mean, I know it was a lot of work for you, Brian. It was sort of taking illustrations that I'd sort of done previously and sort of adapting, and so you've done an amazing job. Thank you.
Thanks a million, Chris. Thanks. So Ali, I know you're good friends with Rachel Lockery, who's part of our team. And so when she approached you and told you what she was up to, what were your initial thoughts on the Act Now Collective?
Yeah, also just say thanks for having me. And
very welcome.
And thank you for the very generous introduction as well. Yeah, so when Rachel approached me, I just thought it was such a good idea to have some really practical, action-oriented steps that covers like all aspects of our lives and how we consume and how we can exist in a more environmentally friendly way. And I think that like when we started New, myself and Aisling, my co-founder, we were just so overwhelmed trying to work out how to actually dress sustainably, and trying to find information. And then I feel like the more you read, kind of the less you know, and there's so much greenwashing out there and so much conflicting information, and some of it's coming from brands or from parties that will have interests that aren't necessarily the climate. So I think just having kind of a single point and a toolkit and a guideline is great. And then just browsing through the website, it's just such a beautiful thing to browse through. It's really nice as well. And I think that makes a huge difference as well.
Thanks a million, Ali. Cheers. That's really nice to hear. Chris, one thing that I love about your work is the use of color in nature. You know, these striking color palettes that run through all your work, they're so bright, they're so vibrant, it kind of makes you feel warm inside, you know. I had my girlfriend's niece and nephew were here today, and I was showing them your work, and my God, their faces just lit up when they when they seen some of your work. Can you just talk to me a little bit about your work, and where does that inspiration come from?
Yeah, well, I actually all of my books are sort of based on different animals and that sort of thing. Yeah, it was funny actually about the color, because when I was in college, I never used, I just only drew things. I never painted, or I wasn't very good at color. And then I kind of had a breakthrough when I realized you can kind of make things any color you like. You could make a forest, but have it all different colored trees, and it still sort of reads as a forest. So then I had a great time putting together illustrations with kind of wild colors. But yeah, that's kind of where the that came from. Actually, a lot of the images that you took were from, I did this app called Little Earth.
Yeah.
It's actually just for virtual reality, so nobody has the headsets. So it's very difficult to actually see the thing. But the idea was you can sort of be on Earth and step off Earth and see it as this tiny orb. And it was kind of like this, the overview effect of just, oh my gosh, this is a really tiny, precious thing. That was kind of one of the reasons I kind of wanted to do that, to sort of just give this impression of our tiny, precious Earth. But yeah, so that's where that came from.
Right. Ali, before I became involved in the collective, I had never heard of the phrase fast fashion. Can you explain what that is for people who don't know, and why it has such a detrimental effect on our environment and biodiversity?
Yeah, so I guess fast fashion is the fashion system we have at the moment, and it arose kind of towards the end of the 80s, when we stopped having kind of 2 seasons of a year in terms of the clothes that were produced, and started to have almost like 52 seasons of clothes are produced every year, almost one for every week now. And it was a combination of factors in terms of offshoring of production. So in the past, clothes used to be produced kind of much more locally. You would buy much fewer sets of clothes, but they would last you much longer. However, now we have a system whereby we consume clothes and see them as disposable almost. So people buy a dress for a night out. They're so much less expensive than, in many times less expensive than actually washing. We're like, looking after your clothes, you can just buy something new, and it's gotten completely out of control. And it's in particular because it actually takes so much water and carbon dioxide and raw materials to make any item of clothing. And if we use them just once or twice, that has such a disproportionate impact on the environment. So I think it's just interesting thinking about like how we value clothes now, and how what the value of clothes in the past and how different it is. And I think the fashion cycle is just getting faster and faster, unfortunately. And I think at the moment there's like 80 billion pieces of clothing manufactured every year, which makes no sense if you think about how many people are in the world and 80 billion pieces of clothing. I think now we're down to the average time that people actually wear a piece of clothing is 7 times, and probably less in many cases. So that's kind of the situation we're in at the moment. So that's fast fashion. So you have to stop it.
Absolutely. And was that the prompt for you to knowing all that? Was that the prompt for you to start the new community and app?
Yeah, I think the initial prompt was more of a human rights focus. So there was, I think it was in 2014, there was the Rana Plaza disaster, where a really large factory collapsed in Bangladesh, killing about 1,113 people and garment workers. And I think the problem was there was all these big brands that I would buy from all the time, and the garment workers had alerted the staff that there were cracks in the ceiling, and still nothing was done. And so I think that was like my wake-up call, that I was like, how can I participate in a system, and how can I spend like almost all of my money, because I was a complete fashion addict, putting it into the system. And I think then learning more about garment workers' rights, that made me kind of think more about sustainability, and actually like, how much clothes do I need, and what is the wider impact of my clothes. And I think there's such a link between like human rights, and climate justice and climate change. And I think that's kind of how I started to learn more about it. And then that's what really kicked off myself and Aisling, starting New, which originally was running swap shops in Dublin. We used to take over like Wigwam on a Sunday afternoon, and that was really popular. So it started off literally just getting some friends together to swap clothes, and now we've like grown into quite a large community of swappers online. So yeah.
Chris, there's a kind of it's kind of a neat segue into, you actually lived in Nepal, right, in 2010, 2011, and you started to do some work with Fairtrade and a company. I think you started a company called Node. Can you?
Oh yeah, well, actually, I was just my sort of route in is sort of similar to Ali's. I mean, I was working just like as a volunteer thing with a company called People Tree. It's like a fair trade and ecological fashion brand. So I'd done an awful lot of work with them, and kind of over the years in London. And they were making all these amazing sort of handcrafted textile things. And I always wanted to go over, because they had photos of the people making these amazing sort of crafted things. And it sometimes, anyway, I thought it would benefit to sort of go over and work more directly. So I took some time off, went out to India and Nepal, and yeah, and ended up spending more time than I intended there. And yeah, one of the things that really took my, you know, as an illustrator, I was working with People Tree doing like just repeat pattern prints and different things. And there wasn't that much I could kind of get involved in, but there was one fair trade production place that People Tree introduced me to, and they made these rugs. So as an illustrator, kind of rugs were like the perfect thing for an illustrator. You know, it's almost a 2D graphic.
Yeah.
So I got really excited, and I was telling People Tree, yeah, let's do rugs, and they were like, we can't, Chris, we're a clothes company. So yeah, I just then. And I was posting them online. I was getting these rugs made and posting them online. And then all of my friends are all basically illustrators as well. So everybody was getting excited, going, oh yeah, we want to do rugs. And I had no way of actually making that happen. And so I was, for about 8 months, I was kind of going, how can I make this happen? Like, because it's actually quite complicated, all the like importing the things and stuff like that. And as I said, I'm not very organized. So I met a Nepalese guy who he basically set up the Nepalese sort of version of Amazon. And I just met him through a friend. His wife is American, and he was like, oh yeah, let's set up a business together. And we made it into a social business, which was his idea. It's actually his wife's idea. And we read this book called Building Social Business, Muhammad Yunus. And so we were like, yeah, we'll just make it a sort of fair trade social business. So all the money goes back in. So yeah, then I invited loads of illustrators to make rugs. And actually we did a little show in the Design Museum in London. We got 18 illustrators each to make a rug and sort of exhibited it there. So I can show you as an example some of the rugs. This one is this artist called Craig Robinson, and he makes these pixel portraits. So this is the Beatles thing. So what I love about the rugs is it's almost like pixels, that each knot,
Yeah.
It sort of corresponds to a pixel. So you can kind of make these pixely computer. It's the perfect thing for someone like me who works on the computer, this sort of thing. So I had just finished a book about an owl. So I made my owl, and then I invited different other authors and illustrators to make rugs. So that's the story of Node. Sort of accidental company.
Oh, excellent, excellent. We might open up some questions from our audience. Sarah, do you have any questions in the chat?
We don't have any questions yet, but we have some fantastic feedback, so it's great to see that. For now, I actually have a question for Chris. So it's really interesting hearing about you opening up this business, and you mentioned that it's a social business. So I was just wondering how much that sort of structure benefits the community, and is it more sustainable?
Yeah, so the producers of the rugs, they're really they're amazing family, and they're from the lowest caste in Nepal. The grandfather, but basically their caste their job was sort of like shoveling the animal waste and this sort of thing, terrible kind of jobs. And he made a fertilizer business and became very wealthy, and then he spent the rest of his life sort of trying to get the rest of his caste out of poverty and out of the poverty trap. And that's sort of moved away. The caste system is largely sort of, gone really, so that they just help disadvantaged people. So a lot of the people that work there, they've got some sort of disadvantage, like, they're deaf or blind. And because there's no sort of social security in the country, those people have, they're seen as a burden, or they feel that they're a burden if they're not unable to work and this sort of thing. So it helps in many ways. Plus they're, it's all vegetable dyes and ecological, they're registered fair trade. In fact, the guy who runs it is actually the chairman of Fair Trade Nepal. So all of the money goes back into that, and myself and Akshay don't take anything. We're just doing it for the fun of it, and to make funny, silly rugs. And
That's brilliant. Now, we have some more questions. So we'll take a question from Marie Sherlock. Is that it?
Yeah, thanks very much, Sarah, and I suppose just well done to everybody involved. I know Rob, but I'm less familiar with the rest of you. But well done to everybody who's been involved in putting together this website. And Chris, when I tell my kids in the morning who was on the call last night, they'll be beside themselves. We're huge fans of A Bit Lost in our house. So, but look, I just want to, I suppose, just a few comments and then maybe just two questions. Firstly, I think the limit of command and control measures in terms of sustainability and climate action, I suppose is very much recognised in your website, that ultimately it is about a bottom-up approach and about personal responsibility in all our lives. So I just think like the initiative is fantastic. But one of the things that strikes me in terms of the area of work of where I work, and secondly in terms of, I suppose, just to really commend the section on who I care for and what I wear, because I think understanding about supply chains, about who actually produces clothes, the appalling wages that the workers, the exploitation effectively that goes into clothing, much of what we're wearing today, and Aine spoke about that, has to be better understood. But of course, it isn't just in far off countries, it's also here as well. And I suppose my appeal would be, in terms of that bit about work, it's actually understanding where we spend our money, and what are people receiving. Is it even the minimum wage? And particularly those of us who are using platform workers, let's say the likes of Deliveroo, to get a delivery at the moment for a meal to your house. What is that person getting paid? So I suppose it's a broader issue about recognizing work and what people are paid here in this country, but abroad as well, as being part of that circular economy, because unless people are decently paid, they won't be able to afford to make changes to their life. And we see that with regards to being able to withstand increases to carbon tax and everything else. I think the second thing, just by way maybe of a comment, is in terms of and I love the section who we care for, and I put up my hand and say I did not use reusable nappies. I'd love to have used it, but I was probably too intimidated. But I think there is a role to encourage breastfeeding there as well. And obviously not every woman can breastfeed, or wishes to do so. But it might be just something just to add in, because again, Ireland has extremely low breastfeeding rates. And if we're to understand the impact both in the agricultural community, and of course Ireland being a mass exporter of powdered milk to the Far East in particular, but also in terms of from a health perspective, but also from a cost perspective and from a sustainability perspective, we need to better promote that. So just to say congratulations again and well done on this initiative. And I suppose to echo the questions that I think that have been put into the chat, where now, what more can we do to try and, I suppose, amplify the actions, the call to arms that you have here. So thank you.
Thank you so much. That's some brilliant feedback and something we're definitely look into. But yeah, I suppose you're right. It's very, once you start looking into everything, I think it's evident from a website that, it's very much, there's kind of like a surface level to it, and then it goes much deeper. There's a major structure behind how, we operate in the world, and that, everything we do is, affecting our planet. So I'm just going to take some more questions from the chat. So we have a question from Horrigan. So they are asking, how can we convince people of the value of personal action when there is so much work to do on global system change? I think Rob can help with answering that question, but I think that I suppose everyone worries that, it is the big companies and the governments that have the big kind of say in making the big change, but it also starts within individuals, and it's individuals that make up the bigger majority. So I think it's a bit of an inside out kind of effect. A ripple effect that that's how change will come about. So does anyone else from our team have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I might, since you landed me in it there, Sarah, I might well, this is the question that we're all struggling with, I think, as I'm sure the person who asked the question knows well. But I think it's I guess you can only relate this to personal experience, and myself, I believe that we all, many of us who, I would imagine everybody here has certain abilities and skills and experience, and everybody has something to give. And I think once make that first step on a journey to transitioning to a lower carbon lifestyle, let's call it, or making these small changes that we talk about on the website, I think that you have to start there. And from making this website, I had no idea how powerful it could be, bringing together a certain bunch of people with certain skills and sort of channeling that energy in a way that suited this particular group. we were able to create this. And I think I think people have more skills and abilities than they maybe realize. And so, you know, when making this, we thought, you know, why isn't somebody else doing this? You know, it's that lovely saying that, you know, I used to wonder why nobody is doing anything about this until I realized that I was somebody. And so I think, you know, it's hopefully, you know, we even thought when making it that maybe hopefully somebody will actually do this on a bigger level and do it even better. You know, why isn't the government doing this, or why aren't bigger agencies doing this? So I also think, and this goes back to actually a Stop Climate Chaos event when we were lobbying TDs before the climate bill came out, thanks to Aine Gorman, who we're going to be speaking to later from Stop Climate Chaos. There was a comment that there needs to be education of this nature within politics as well as outside. And so I think in terms of our next moves, and Rachel's going to talk about that in a second, that as a collective, we have a certain ability to communicate. I mean, maybe design is more our biggest strength, and we are open to collaborating with other organizations and activists or individuals who to make projects. So we're currently talking with Dara Wynne, of the podcaster Dara Wynne of the COVID Alarm Clock, who's here tonight, who's actually a teacher, musician turned podcaster. There's ideas there about some kind of a campaign. So it's all about maybe initiating more projects. So very, very long, garbled answer to a very simple, well, very complicated question, but that's my answer.
Perfect, thank you, Rob. So I see there's some more questions there about the future and what we aim to do with ACT Now. For now, thanks everyone for your feedback. It's very great. It's very good, and it's great to see a conversation going. So you can
also there's one person I forgot to mention in the introduction. That's Aisling Sexton, and so that Aisling I met through the TD lobby, Stop Climate Chaos, and she actually wrote the mind and body section. So thank you so much, Aisling, and thanks for being here tonight. Did an amazing job.
Yeah, that section's brilliant. But yeah, just to say, if anyone has any more feedback or would like to get in touch, we do have an email. You can reach out to us via email or on Instagram or our Facebook pages. So please go ahead, because it's great to get the conversation rolling. And now I will just hand you over to Rachel, who will talk about what we plan to do in the future and what our kind of longer term goals. So yeah, thank you.
Hello everyone. It's been such a lovely event so far. So great to hear everyone speaking. I'm so grateful to be involved in this amazing collective. So I'll just go through a number of things they're planning to do in the future. Because I know some of those questions came up in the chat box. So we plan to grow as a collective. So we plan to establish local versions of the ACT Now website in other countries, starting with Spain, because Anna's from Spain, and Germany, because Malin is based in Berlin currently. And we're also planning to collaborate, which is a very important part of this collective. So we wish to work with other people and organizations working on climate action projects. Our aim is to be strategic and work on projects that best suit our respective skills and projects that have the most impact. So please contact us if you would like to get involved, for example, in writing a blog post, or maybe you'd like to take part in the webinar series that we're planning to organize. And our email is info@actnowcollective.org. And we also have an Instagram account and a Facebook page. So if you'd like to contact us and get involved, that would be amazing. Another part of the future, our future plans would be to inform. So we plan to host more webinars and events, and we're open to suggestions from you. from the public, for anyone who'd like to put their input in, and wanting just noting what you'd like us to focus on next. So that's our 3 main plans so far. And yeah, so right now I'd like to pass it on to Aine Gorman from Stockholm Chaos, who'll be talking us through the climate consultation, which is due tomorrow. It's very important that we all do it. So yeah, I'd like to welcome Aine.
Hi everyone. So my name is Aine and I work with Stockholm Chaos, and I can see some familiar faces from over the last few weeks where I've been running lots of workshops on how to fill out the climate consultation. But for anyone who doesn't know, and maybe anyone who's kind of new to this space, it's great to have been invited to come here because there's so many great ideas about what you can do from an individual perspective on this website. And at the same time, we know that lots and lots and lots of people aren't necessarily able to take the actions that we would all love to be taking for climate, because it's really hard, or it's really unaffordable, or it's not accessible. So we'd all love to be taking more public transport. But if you live in rural Ireland, if there's no buses, very hard thing to do. So this website really gives you the sparks of ideas of the things that we would all love to be able to do. And what we'd love to say to the government is, hey, these are things that would be great for us to do as individuals, as communities on climate action. Help us do it. Help us make it affordable for us, make it possible for us, and make it accessible to everyone. So I'm going to just show you, I think, Rob, have you given me access to share my screen? Could you let me share my screen? I have a little slideshow.
Yep.
So super. And this is due tomorrow. And what this is this is going to feed, this is the consultation. So it's basically a survey from the government. And there's in 2021, they have to make a climate action plan. And the climate action plan will be, what are the things that what Ireland are going to do on climate in the next year? So it's really, really important, because it could be absolute crap, or it could be really exciting. And we know that often the government, because of vested interests and lots of other different issues, want to stall on climate. And a lot of the reasons they often want to stall is because they think that their voters don't care, and they think that their voters aren't going to punish them in the ballot box for not taking strong action. And I know that one of the beautiful sections on your website is about voting. And so before we vote, one of the best things to do, because we only get a chance to vote once every 4 years or 5 years, before we vote, one of the best things to do is engage with the political process as it's going. So I met Rob through that TD lobby that he spoke about earlier. And this is another way that you can engage with the political process. You can tell the government what we want them to do. And then we know that if a lot of people tell the government, engage in this process, tell the government what we want them to do, they're more likely to realize that this is a significant issue for their constituents, and they're more likely to start actually putting things into place if they think that they might lose votes for not doing things. Sounds cynical, but it's unfortunately the case. So it's called a climate conversation. There's 2 different consultations. I'll just be talking about the climate conversation. You can do it in 2 minutes. I'll give you a quick 2-minute version, and I'll also give you a longer version of what you can do. The first thing I would say is it's really important to fill out. As I say, the more people who fill out, the better. The more people the government hear from, the better. Talk about your own experiences. Think about what's important to you. And I'll be giving you a few more tips, but don't panic. It's key. You don't need to be an expert. If you've just turned up to this event and you're like, I've only thought a little bit about climate change before, and I'm here because I want to know what are the first steps I can take. That's great, fantastic. Fill out the consultation. You don't have to be an expert. You just have to say something to the government. Really, this is saying, hey, it's me, I'm Aine, and I care. Or hey, it's me, I'm Rachel, and I care. That's one of the key things about filling out this consultation. So do go for it. I'm going to skip this slide. Okay, so what we're trying to say from Stockholm Chaos perspective to the government is really around what I was talking about before. So there's lots and lots of things that we all want to do. Loads of them are on the website. But in many cases, it's really hard to do them for a lot of people. The rules are wrong. So for instance, you might want to put solar panels on your roof. It's a great idea. It's a fantastic thing to do. For some people, that's very unaffordable. And for everyone, you have to get planning permission for that. Quite hard to get that planning permission. So there's lots of different examples of where the rules are wrong. Another one is plastic bottles or cans. In lots of countries, they have a deposit return scheme where you can pop your plastic bottle into a box and you get some money back for that. And that really incentivizes recycling more. But that doesn't happen in Ireland. So the rules are wrong in a lot of spaces, and it's difficult or unaffordable to do many things. And lots of people end up feeling really, really guilty because they can't do the things because the rules are wrong. So you're kind of like hitting up against a brick wall, feeling guilty because you're not doing everything that you know you might like to be doing for the planet and for the climate, but it's not necessarily always your fault because the bigger picture is making it difficult or unaffordable for you to do that. So what we want to tell the government is we want the rules changed in a way that is fair to everyone, it leaves no one behind, and it creates a better Ireland for all of us who live here. So I'll skip these. So like I said, don't panic, do your best, you don't have to be an expert. Just 3 things, and I'll show you the consultation now in a second after this slide. After you answer as you answer each section, just try and keep in mind 3 key issues. So 1, we always want to reduce our emissions. That's one of the big things. We want to get our dependence on fossil fuels down. The second thing is increasing biodiversity. We always want to support nature. We want to increase biodiversity. We know that's one of our big saviors. And the third is social justice. So we don't want to leave anyone behind. We don't want to implement something that's accessible to people who have money, and then people who don't have money aren't able to access it and maybe are penalized for not, you know, they might end up living in very cold houses because they haven't been able to retrofit it when others have, or whatever that might be. So we need to make sure that we're not leaving anyone behind. So I'm just going to show you what the climate conversation looks like. So it's lovely, it's sparkly, it's nice and colourful. And if you Google government climate action conversation, you'll find it. And there's 7 sections. They're fairly straightforward. I'm going to quickly give you the 2-minute version of doing this. So you click into About You and you answer About You, very straightforward. And the second one is you click into Taking Action on Climate Change. And this asks you questions like, how serious do you think climate change is? And we really do suggest in all of these sections that you choose the most serious answer, because what we want the government to hear is climate change is a really, really massive issue, and we want you to do as much as possible on it. So answer, you know, you can answer whatever way you like, but this is our suggestion. So always say the biggest increase in climate actions. I think climate change is the most important issue, because this is all about climate, and we want the government to hear that from as many people as possible. What we have as well is we have a template document that will help you to fill out the consultation. So if you want some ideas of what to say in these open boxes, you can look at that template document. But what I would also suggest is go onto the Act Now website and look at some of the suggestions that they have there and see, what would I like to be doing? And then just come onto this section and go, look, I'd love to be retrofitting my house. I'd love to be, but I can't afford it, or I don't know how, or I'd love some government support on that. I'd love if the government would support me to retrofit my house. I'd love if the government would support me to get more public transport. I'd love if the government would support me to have reusable nappies. I'd love if the government would support me to have a more caring role in my house. Whatever it is, and I think this is why this website is amazing, is you can just go on to that, to Act Now Collective, pick out what you want, what you'd like to be doing, and put in the box and say, I'd love government support to be able to do this. And that's one of the most important things. And then I do really suggest that you also, as much as possible, say, please try and make this affordable and accessible to everyone in Ireland. because that's one of the key things, as I said earlier. We want to make sure that we don't leave anyone behind. Climate action is for everyone. It can make everyone's lives better. So we want to make sure that it's not just the people who have the time and energy to think about climate or the money and to take a lot of the actions that get to take climate action. And then finally here, what I would suggest is in most of these sections, and the other sections are things like, they're broken into things like transport, home, there's one on food waste. I would suggest saying, so it asks you, what are you already doing? What I would suggest you saying, you can of course answer whatever you like, but say want to, not able, if you're not sure, because not everyone in Ireland is going to answer this submission. And for a lot of people, a lot of these things will be want to, not able. So for example, avoid car usage as much as possible to reduce my climate impact. Now, if you're living in the city, you need to drive across the city, or no, sorry, if you're living in the countryside and you need to drive your kids to school, you just can't reduce your car usage. You know, it's just not possible if there's no bus, if there's nothing. So so I live in the city right now. I'm going to say want to, not able, because I want to make sure that the government hear that there are people who would love to be able to reduce their car usage, but they're not able at the moment. So I'm going to kind of stand in solidarity with those people and say, look, government, there's lots of people who would want to be able to reduce their car usage, but they're not able at the moment. So similar things like that. Plan, buy and prepare my meals to reduce the climate impact and avoid waste. That's amazing. We all know it's more expensive to shop zero waste. We all know it's more expensive to buy organic. So again, I might be able to afford it, but at the moment, so the government really hear a strong message that people would like to do this, but some people aren't able to do it because it's too expensive or it's inaccessible. I'm going to say want to, not able. So as I said, you can answer in whatever way you like. But that's just some of our suggestions to really have this as its most effective and to have it as a real intervention in what the government are going to do for their 2021 climate action plan. So what we have on our website on Stockholm Chaos, and I'll put this in the chat box, is a handy guide, so the cheat sheet. And thank you so much to Brian, who designed this late on a Friday night, which is a cheat sheet which helps you to fill it out. So if you want some more tips on what to say in the different boxes, you can scroll down through this cheat sheet and you'll see some suggestions on what you might say. So for travel, you'll see that there is some suggestions such as, you know, you might write about the need for Ireland's transport system to be transformed so public transport is a viable option, or something friendly to cyclists and walkers. So there's lots of ideas there about what you might write, but the key thing I would say is don't panic, put something in. As I said, your 2-minute version is fill out who you are and pop down here and say want to, not able, climate change is really important, I want a big increase in climate actions, and pop that off to the government. If you want to spend a little bit more time, it tends to take people about 30 minutes or so. Sit down with their cheat sheet, fill in what you want, and do have a look at the Act Now website. Think about some of the things you'd like to do or you think other people might like to do, and ask the government, say, I want to be able to do this, make it accessible and affordable for everyone to do that. So that was a quick whistle-stop tour through the Climate Action Plan consultation. I don't know if we have time for questions, but if you do have any questions, you can pop me an email at aine@stockclimatechaos.ie. I'll put my email into the chat box, and tomorrow I'll just be helping people fill out the submission. So if you do have any questions, you can pop me an email and I'll do my best to help you out.
That's fantastic, Aine. Thanks so much. A really, really comprehensive rundown on how to answer the survey. And also we're recording this meeting, so we will send out the recording tomorrow. And so if anyone wants to look back on Aine's little mini workshop there while you're filling out the survey, that would be really, really useful. So that just about wraps us up. We've been pretty much exactly an hour. So just to go back and thank Chris and Ali for being here tonight and for their contributions, and to Aine, of course, for her fantastic workshop, and to everybody who's joined us tonight. Some people who collaborated on the website, and other people who offered their support, and then other people who just came across us through social media and word of mouth. And so we're very grateful for your support. And we would just like to ask everybody who hasn't signed up to our newsletter yet, on the website. It's at the very, click Brian's lovely, I can't remember exactly what it says, sign up button at the end of the website on every page. Click it and enter your details, and then that way you'll be kept informed on our next move, whatever that might be. And feel free to offer your suggestions also on what that might be as well. So I think unless anyone else wants to add anything, I think we might wrap up there and say thank you very much, and see you again soon.
Thank you.
Cheers.
See you, everybody.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Thanks a million, everyone.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ali. Cheers.
Thank you, everyone.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.